We are going to have Heather join us shortly, but just before that, if we still have some folks from the ministry on, particularly I think Danielle and Valentina, there's a question that had come in some while ago by Jeff Taylor, amongst others. He was asking about a scenario, as you may see there in the Q&A session there. Consider a scenario where there's he calls it mom pop dry cleaner. So this will be a dry cleaner in a typical strip mall or something in the Lower Mainland. It shuts down. It's a bit, I think this is a bit of a rhetorical question. Is the ministry going to fine them $75,000 a day if they don't submit a detailed site investigation within a year? I suspect not, but it is worthy of a bit of discussion, or at least a response. As Jeff points out, it seems unworkable. It'd be good to have some discussion around this.
Guy, it's Danielle here. Valentina will jump in to answer the question, but I was just thinking in the meantime, can either you or Raquel add Heather as a panelist? Sure. She's listed as an attendee right now, and then I'll just pass it on to you, Valentina.
All right, so while you're trying to add Heather, I can answer that. It's quick and easy. It does apply. So the regulations and the CSR and the Act, they do not apply selectively. They apply fairly and consistently to any British Columbian in the province.
Well, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, well, I have managed to get Heather promoted here, and now I'm going to actually go beyond that, and I'm going to make Heather a host so we can see her visage.
Good morning.
Okay, Heather, you're on.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Sorry, I had a bit of trouble there. It says host has stopped my video. Is there something you can do to? There we go. How's that?
That's it.
Okay. And will you share? And I will follow along. Does that work?
Yeah, I think you have to. If you have your slides, you can share them by hitting the share screen.
I'm trying. In theory. I think you'd best. I seem to be totally frozen.
Oh, well, we can see you. You don't look frozen to me, Heather. You're fine.
Okay, that's good. I'm here.
Would you like me to share?
Chilliwack today. Okay, here we go. Share screen. Share my PowerPoint. How is that?
It's starting. There we go. Yep, we're on. So now just hit the slideshow and away we go.
Okay, here we are. Thank you. So today, as Danielle mentioned a bit earlier, I'm talking to you about the ministry application processes that are under improvement right now. I'd like to acknowledge with respect the work that I do for the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy from the Surrey office, which is located in Coast Salish territories, with the closest nations being the Coquitlam, the Katzie, the Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo peoples. I'm a grateful visitor to the land and strive to be mindful of the connection it holds to the Indigenous peoples and the goal to protect human health and the environment for everyone and everything, including plants and animals. A bit of background on the talk that I'm giving today. The ministry has been improving application processes, and this is under a major theme of obtaining information about applications to the ministry in terms of numbers, types, scope, and any related trends therein. As Danielle mentioned, the Business Improvement Project was conducted about 2018 or so, 2017, 2018, 2019. The client survey results were used to inform changes to ministry processes. In particular, the project that I'm working on has tried to address comments around processing applications, wait times, or the ministry usually calls them turnaround times, and I'll refer to them as turnaround times today, and ministry resources. The goals of the project are to be systematic in our approach, and we believe that will improve consistency. We'll identify meaningful metrics about contaminated sites applications. Along that line, I have some metrics for you. We've been keeping track in detail since January 1st, 2020. We've received over 200 applications to our program to date. We're on track for about 400 to 500 applications this year. That's 200 applications received up until about June 1st, so the first 5 months of the year. 38% of our applications to date have been CSAP instruments. About 24% that come in the door are report reviews relating to non-high risk or high risk sites. About equally, we get about 12% report reviews for non-high risk sites and about 12% for high risk sites. 20% of the work that comes in is for a protocol approval under protocols 4, 6, 9, or 21. Those are background protocols and P6 approvals and water use determinations. About 10% of the applications are for site support and direct to ministry instruments, and about 8% are Protocol 12 decisions, such as reclassification from a high-risk site to another classification level. And just as a reminder, applications are a part of our business. The ministry also conducts oversight of high-risk sites and works on projects, some of the projects that Danielle mentioned. So as an overview, this project has many phases. We're in about phase 5. What we try to do is prepare a phase, prepare an implementation plan, roll it out, implement it, and call it complete. So there's a few phases that have been completed, and I'm just going to show you the inward-facing refinements we've made to processing in an effort to improve things. So we've improved application management and invoicing software within the ministry. We've adjusted teams to fit the volume of applications. We've structured our approach to assigning work to teams, and then those are all completed. Underway, we have a Protocol 12 review project, which is, again, an internal project, but it's underway to look at steps, feedback loops, iterative improvements, that type of thing. We've been identifying ministry topic leads, or re-identifying. Perhaps you're all familiar with the contact list we used to have on the website. We don't use that approach anymore. Danielle's indicated we're going to have the 6 email addresses to use, but those email addresses will be answered by the appropriate person. And so internally, we're re-identifying ministry topic leads to make sure your question gets to the right lead. And then also, we're always discussing which phase or aspect we're going to tackle next. And I thought there's 3 here that you may be interested in. These flow from some of those client survey results. So turnaround times or wait times, fees and forms. Like fillable online forms would be the ideal future state, but we're not quite there yet. So I just wanted to mention with the turnaround times, we're recognizing we haven't communicated recently clarified turnaround times. And so there's some inconsistent understanding and maybe expectation of turnaround times based on old info or your previous experiences or inconsistent business practices. So we're using this project and these new metrics that we've gathered, the information we've gathered, to develop and inform something more firm to allow for business planning around realistic turnaround times. So stay tuned. More refinement on that is to come. So noticeable changes from an AP's perspective, I would suggest. Again, there's direction to use one of 6 email addresses to contact the ministry. These are available on our Contact Us webpage by topic. So for applications, the topic of this presentation, you would use the Client Information Officer's email address. And it's there, csp_cio@victoria1.gov.bc.ca. That's how you would submit applications and submit requests for information. The goal, and hopefully you will see, equality and increased responsiveness from the ministry. You're going to see people in the ministry, staff and managers, ask you to submit contaminated site services application forms for meetings, advice, technical responses, items or services, contaminated site services that are mentioned in the CSR Schedule 3. So if you're seeking something from the ministry, you need to put it in an application and submit it to the Client Information Officer at that email above. For example, if you're submitting a P4 or P9 approval or request for a meeting, it all goes to the CIO, the Client Information Officer, by email. Of course, the ministry will communicate any changes via the site remediation news and the site remediation website, and website modernization is underway. But I wanted to give you the message. The surest path to ministry service is to follow the application instructions and follow the contents of this presentation and Danielle's presentation. So the principles of the project. This is the type of messaging you'll receive when you contact the ministry. An application is not considered complete and ready for processing by the ministry until the entire package is received by the Client Information Officer. This includes forms, reports, payment, and more. And applications are processed within the ministry in the order received when they're complete. And we're operating under the first in, first out principle that Danielle mentioned. To allow for ministry time to be spent on reviewing applications, the ministry team working on an application will not be disclosed. And staff will not be providing status updates, like Client Information Officer will do this. And there's reasons behind that. The ministry has up to 100 open applications at a time, and status updates are numerous. Status update requests from people such as yourself are numerous, and they take significant time to answer. Can you imagine if we were answering the status of 100 open applications in any given month? It's a big work piece for us. So we've developed this system, and we expect people to use inquiries about the status of applications are sent to the Client Information Officer at that email address again. This will be a key portal for you to contact the ministry. The CIO will provide information if possible, and you will receive standardized messaging. And the ministry, again, is working towards having current turnaround times, or at least having an indication of where we're moving with turnaround times. So So the one window approach, you'll hear us say this in our site remediation website and in our news and in our presentations. The client information officer is the one window approach to the ministry. So for meeting requests, reclassification applications, any service by the ministry, HR site reports, monitoring reports, AP statements, they all go through this window. So applications must be submitted to the CIO. No longer do we support having you send an application to a ministry staff member who is not the CIO. The definition of a complete application is important because your work or your application will be queued or considered acceptable once it's complete. So the definition is here. It's also available on our webpage, and I'll show you the webpage next. All relevant forms, reports, figures, and plans in electronic form have to be received by the client information officer in Victoria. Our mailing and courier addresses and email addresses for the CIO are available on our Contact Us webpage. Plus, appropriate payment as per CSR Schedule 3 has to be received in order for your application to be considered complete. Now note, under COVID-19, we have a web page that describes how the definition of a complete application has changed. It no longer, for the duration of the COVID-19 provincial emergency, includes paper. And so you do not have to submit paper reports at this time. You may still have to submit paper checks, but we've also offered another form of payment, an electronic funds transfer option. So the site remediation news that came out yesterday has information on the site remediation webpage, and there's a new webpage called Apply for Services. It replaces Admin Guidance 3, which was called Applying for Contaminated Site Services. The webpage Apply for Services is now available. It has the similar information with modernization. And the definition of a complete application for COVID-19 duration is present on the webpage. So that's electronic only submission via email, or you can email links to sites where the CIO can pick up large files and then submit payments as well. So there's another note you may not be aware of. If there's a substantial report, technical addendum, or additional information requested by the ministry, it also must be submitted to the CIO, the Client Information Officer. So this is important to ensure the ministry has the right records. We reduce our digital footprint and our storage resources. And most importantly, we're reducing the reliance on a single ministry person. These are very detailed reasons, but I'm trying to give you an insight onto the rationale. And the key for this is to have redundancy in ministry processes and in succession planning. Those are internal themes we're trying to move towards being better, improved processes, improved business practices. And when you use the CIO, this will ensure you receive service. No longer will you be relying on a single ministry person and a specific email, person's email. You'll be relying on the Client Information Officer email, which can be checked by numerous people. And this Client Information Officer brings applications to the attention of the management team. So reminders, let's check the time here. The same issues seem to keep coming up, and so I have 3 reminders for you. Final determinations must be prepared by the approved professional and submitted to CSAP. CSAP does not prepare these documents. The ministry does not prepare these documents. After the preliminary determination is signed by the ministry waits until the final determination draft instrument is submitted by the AP through CSAP. Protocol 6 is an important reminder for everyone. It requires that a contaminated site coming to the ministry with an AP recommendation must be for the entire extent of contamination, or a Protocol 6 approval to not apply for the entire extent must be obtained prior to the submission to CSAP. So this is a little reminder for everyone. You must obtain a P6 approval for part of a site, a subdivided site, half of a site, the source parcel only, or the affected parcel only. During COVID, we've found that the ministry has spent a significant amount of time looking for mailing addresses and email addresses. And thankfully, CSAP worked with us to improve the cover letter template to make it clear that we expect and hope this information will come to the ministry with a complete package. So it'll be conducted by QPs and APs before it comes to the ministry. So on the cover letter, it's expected that you'll have the full information for all interested parties or affected parties, as any source parcels and NAPs as well. This includes utilities like BC Hydro and Fortis, banks and financial institutions, which is often one of the harder ones to get mailing address, contact info, and emails for. Municipalities, of course, because CSR 52.2 requires the ministry to provide a copy of an instrument to a municipality, as well as others. And MF39 is listed there as well to indicate we do expect all interested parties or affected parties to be included on the cover letters. So the request is to provide full names, job titles, full company and organizational names, mailing addresses, and email addresses. And during COVID, we're largely doing, I would say, an increased email trade over sending mail or registered mail. So exemptions. It's kind of funny. Through our inquiry management process, we're finding that people are asking for exemptions and exceptions quite often. Now that we have a more structured approach, we're seeing trends. And I just want to remind everyone that the ministry does not have the authority to provide exemptions and exceptions unless they're written in the law. But exemptions or exceptions to the Environmental Management Act, the CSR, or the protocols, the ministry doesn't have the authority, and we don't have the authority to grant it often either, unless it's written and it's clearly stated. So in other words, a requirement in EMMA, the CSR protocol, is a requirement that binds all involved. It binds the AP and it binds the statutory decision maker and the ministry. So I'll give you an example. If an application comes through CSAP to the ministry for consideration of a CFC with an AP recommendation, the CFC is for a part of a site, and no Protocol 6 approval to not delineate or remediate the entire extent of contamination is present, so that means there's no P6 for a part site prior to getting to the ministry, then that application for a CFC is incomplete. Last reminder, please subscribe to Site Remediation News, as everyone before me has indicated, and thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Heather. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to type them in or in the chat or the question button. Again, we're running short of time here, but I'm gonna ask a question on behalf of several colleagues of mine. So the one window approach, it's a bit disconcerting, I guess might be a word. It makes an AP anxious that they're sending a question into nowhere land and not sure where the question will land and who will answer. You know, historically, there was a person, knowing a person actually, I don't know if it's psychological or what, but losing that personal connection, I think causes anxiety. I'm not sure if there's a way around that. Maybe you know, but I do have a comment though. I've tried it. I tried it, I believe, just last week, and I was amazed how quickly I got a response back and got some dialogue going. So I know that the system can work. Having said that, a colleague of mine tried it, and the response came back that your question is rather complicated. We're going to have to charge you some time to answer it, and we need your site ID, and it was a confidential site and they couldn't provide it, so I think that went into limbo. So there's going to be good times and bad times with this process.
Well, I'll provide a bit more info. It's a section-wide change for everyone, for the ministry as well as for our clients. The test of it is if your inquiry will take less than an hour to respond to, we will provide a response, usually by email. But if your inquiry will take more than an hour to respond to, we will let you know that we require a CSSAF, a Contaminated Site Services Application Form, which is perhaps what happened to your colleague there. And so that's our test. If it's less than an hour, we'll respond by email. If it's more than an hour, we'll bring you into this application process that I was describing to you here today. And we hope and think that it will improve consistency, improve responsiveness, and improve equality and fairness. So maybe it is a bit concerning to you that you don't know who's answering your question, but someone will answer your question. That's the change that we're moving towards. Less reliance on a particular person, Guy, as you indicated, less reliance on, let's say, Peggy, now that Peggy's retired, more reliance on the ministry getting you an answer. And we think the system will work. And there's been some early successes and some early indications of areas we can improve.
Right.
Hi, Guy. It's Danielle here. I can jump in as well. And I know
Sure.
you're trying to move us along in our agenda. And, you know, you are asking a question that's at the heart of the matter. I think that we, as a community as a whole, have to think to evolve to the changes that we've seen as the regime has grown over time, in that the volume of applications that we receive is so much more significant. Sorry about the background noise here. So much more significant than what was in the early days, where there was maybe that personal catered experience that the ministry might have been able to provide because everybody was learning together. But I can say it maybe just really candidly instead of, you know, have it be in messaging. The ministry is no longer able to resource or prioritize you know, giving personal advice and education. We have been given direction from our own executive and even through the professional reliance report that we need to operate as the regulator. And it's not even appropriate for a regulator to really be having a personal connection or relationship. And it's a bit, you know, it's a bit challenging given how small our community is. And of course we know each other by first name, but we really do have to uphold that. And I hopefully to alleviate some of that anxiety is that you should not see a difference in the service that you receive from the ministry. I've been trying to think of what's a way to compare it to other things that we all interact with. When you send in your passport application, it doesn't matter who's processing your application. All that matters is that you get your passport in a timely fashion. Similar to when you file your taxes. You don't know I don't even know what the role is, the officer or the reviewer that processes your taxes. All you know is that they're processed, filed, and you either owe or get your payment. So that's what we're aiming towards. And I know that's different for people. So there will be some change here and hopefully we can move through it together. And we're absolutely happy to, address any concerns that come along the way, and we're open to making tweaks to the system as needed.